The conference room fell silent. Mark's voice had barely been audible, but his words hung in the air like thunder. Across the table, Katherine's expression shifted from confusion to understanding, her pen frozen mid-note. The tension between them was palpable, electric, dangerous. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I share stories that explore the complex emotions and difficult choices we face in life. Today's story is one that truly moved me, and I think it will resonate with many of you too. If it does, please hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of storytellers and listeners. Now, let's dive into this powerful story of sacrifice, boundaries, and unexpected connection. Mark Sullivan never imagined his life would come to this moment. Standing in his boss's office after hours, admitting feelings he had no right to have, watching her face as she processed his rejection. The journey to this point had been paved with grief, struggle, and unexpected connection. 3 years ago, Mark's world shattered when his wife Sarah died from aggressive pancreatic cancer, leaving him alone to raise their 8-year-old daughter Emma. The marketing firm where he worked had been understanding initially, but compassion rarely survives corporate restructuring. Katherine Reynolds arrived as the new department head 11 months after Sarah's passing. At 42, she had built her reputation on ruthless efficiency. Her sleek pantsuits and precise manner of speaking commanded respect, and her track record for turning around underperforming departments preceded her. Mark had heard the rumors, brilliant but merciless, with zero tolerance for personal problems interfering with work. Their first meeting had been brief and clinical. Katherine reviewed his file, noted his declining performance metrics, and set clear expectations for improvement. No mention was made of his personal circumstances, and Mark didn't volunteer the information. He needed this job, the health insurance, the stability, the routine it provided for Emma. So he nodded, promised to do better, and returned to his desk with dread settling in his stomach. For weeks, Mark pushed himself beyond breaking point to meet Katherine's standards. He stayed up after Emma went to bed, preparing presentations and catching up on emails. He called in favors for extended childcare. He missed Emma's soccer game to finish a client proposal. Each sacrifice felt like another betrayal of his promise to Sarah that their daughter would always come first. Emma noticed the changes. "You look tired, Daddy," she said one morning over cereal, her small face serious beneath her unruly brown curls, so like her mother's. "Are you sick like Mommy was?" The innocent question nearly broke him. "No, sweetheart," he'd assured her, pulling her into a tight hug. "Daddy's just busy with work. I'm not going anywhere." But the pace was unsustainable. The breaking point came during an important client meeting when the school nurse called about Emma's high fever. Mark faltered mid-presentation, aware of Katherine's sharp gaze from the end of the conference table. He finished hastily, then slipped her a note explaining he had a family emergency. Her slight frown and curt nod sent a chill through him, but Emma needed him. The following morning, Katherine summoned him to her office. After a night tending to Emma's fever, Mark was running on coffee and anxiety as he faced his boss's displeasure. "Your performance yesterday was disappointing," Katherine began without preamble. "The Westridge account is crucial for our quarterly targets." "I apologize," Mark said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "My daughter was ill. We all have personal responsibilities, Mark," Katherine interrupted. "But when you're at work, your focus needs to be here. I've noticed a pattern of early departures and distracted performance." Mark felt something snap inside him, not anger, but the quiet breaking of pretense. "My wife died last year," he said simply. "I'm raising our daughter alone. I'm doing my best to balance everything, but sometimes that's not possible." Katherine's expression hadn't changed, but something flickered in her eyes. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said after a moment, her tone softening slightly. "But this is a competitive industry. We need people who can deliver consistently." 2 weeks later, after Emma's school called about a possible sprained wrist during another important meeting, Mark knew something had to change. The next day, he requested a meeting with Katherine after hours. The office was quiet as most employees had left for the day. Katherine sat behind her desk, reviewing reports, her dark hair pulled back in its usual immaculate bun. She looked up when Mark knocked, gesturing for him to take a seat. "I appreciate you making time," Mark began. "I've been trying to perform at the level you expect while being everything my daughter needs. I'm failing at both. I miss deadlines because Emma has nightmares about her mother dying. I miss her school events because I'm trying to finish projects. Neither of you is getting my best." Katherine's expression remained neutral. "What are you proposing?" "I'd like to request a modified schedule, perhaps 4 days in office and 1 day remote. I can make up hours in the evenings after Emma's asleep." "It's not ideal," Katherine interrupted. "We have deadlines and client expectations that don't conform to personal schedules." Mark felt desperation rising. "I understand that. But I'm a good marketer. Before Sarah got sick, I brought in major accounts. I can still deliver quality work, just differently." Katherine studied him for a long moment. "The company policy doesn't typically allow for such arrangements." Mark nodded, his heart sinking. "Then I may need to consider other options. My daughter has to come first." The silence stretched between them. Mark noticed for the first time how tired Katherine looked beneath her professional veneer. "I had a brother," Katherine said suddenly, her voice different, softer, less clipped. "He died when I was 12. Cancer, like your wife." She paused, looking past Mark to the darkening window. "My parents were present physically, but absent in every way that mattered. They were so consumed by grief and work that they forgot they still had a child who needed them." Mark remained silent, sensing she rarely shared this part of herself. "I built my career by compartmentalizing," she continued. "Work is work. Personal is personal. It's been effective, but perhaps not always human." She met his eyes directly. "Your daughter needs you. That's non-negotiable." To Mark's astonishment, Katherine offered him a flexible schedule, 3 days in office, 2 days remote. "This is conditional on performance," she warned. "I'm not doing this out of charity. I'm investing in a valuable employee who needs temporary accommodation." The new arrangement transformed both their lives. Emma's nightmares decreased, and she started smiling more. Mark's work improved without the constant anxiety of being pulled in 2 directions. Katherine remained demanding but fair, never mentioning their personal conversation again, yet showing unexpected understanding when family emergencies arose. 6 months later, at the company holiday party, Mark brought Emma when his childcare fell through. Katherine approached them, elegant in a simple black dress instead of her usual business attire. "You must be Emma," she said, bending slightly to meet the girl at eye level. "Your father talks about you all the time." Emma studied her solemnly. "Are you the boss lady who makes daddy work late?" Katherine laughed, a genuine sound Mark had rarely heard. "Yes, that's me. But I'm trying to be better about that." As the evening progressed, Mark found himself alone with Katherine near the windows overlooking the city lights. Something had shifted between them over the months, a mutual respect that had gradually evolved into something more complex. "Mark," Katherine said suddenly, her voice hesitant, "would you and Emma like to join me for dinner sometime? Not work-related. Just dinner." The question caught him off guard. He looked at her, really looked, and saw not just his demanding boss but a woman who had shared a painful piece of her past with him, who had bent her rigid rules to help him when he needed it most. She was attractive, yes, but more than that, she was strong and complex and unexpectedly kind beneath her professional exterior, and in that moment, he recognized the dangerous territory they were entering. The boundaries between them, boss and employee, 2 people connected by circumstance and growing attraction, were blurring in ways that terrified him. I don't know if that's a good idea," he said quietly. Katherine's expression closed slightly. "Of course. It was just a thought." "No, it's not," Mark struggled to articulate the sudden confusion he felt. It's just that Emma is still processing her mother's death, and I'm her father but also her employee, and the boundaries are already complicated enough without. He trailed off, uncertain how to continue without presuming too much or too little. Katherine nodded briskly. You're right. It was inappropriate of me to suggest it. Please forget I mentioned it. She turned to leave, but Mark gently caught her wrist. The touch was electric, unexpected. Their eyes met, and the professional masks they both wore slipped completely. Katherine, wait. He lowered his voice, suddenly aware of colleagues nearby. We're both adults, but I can't do this. Not yet. Emma has to be my priority, and anything that might confuse or hurt her isn't something I can risk right now. Katherine froze, her eyes locked with his. For a moment, everything around them seemed to disappear, the party, their colleagues, the professional relationship they'd carefully maintained. In her eyes, Mark saw understanding, disappointment, and something that might have been respect. I respect that, she said softly. More than you know. He moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken possibilities and complications. Then Emma bounded up, breaking the tension with her excitement over the chocolate fountain she'd discovered. Katherine stepped back, her composure returning. Enjoy the rest of the party, she said with a small smile. I'll see you on Tuesday, Mark. As she walked away, Mark felt both regret and certainty. His life had no room for romantic complications right now, but for the first time since Sarah died, he could imagine a future where that might change. 6 months later, Mark sat in the conference room, spreadsheets spread before him as he and Katherine finalized the quarterly strategy. They had settled into a careful professional relationship, the moment at the holiday party neither forgotten nor acknowledged. Emma was thriving in school. Mark had found his balance between work and fatherhood. And Katherine had implemented flexible scheduling options for other employees with caregiving responsibilities, discovering that productivity actually improved with such accommodations. As they wrapped up the meeting, Katherine handed him a small gift bag. This is for Emma. I saw it and thought of her. Inside was a butterfly hair clip, similar to the one Sarah had given Emma but more grown-up, silver with small blue stones. Her birthday is next week, Katherine said matter-of-factly. You mentioned she's been feeling too old for her old clips but still wants to wear butterflies because they remind her of her mother. Mark was touched that she had remembered such a detail from their casual conversations. This is very thoughtful. She'll love it. Katherine nodded, gathering her papers. Good. Now about the Johnson proposal. Katherine, Mark interrupted gently. Would you like to come to Emma's birthday dinner? Nothing fancy, just pizza and cake at our place. A few of her friends and their parents will be there. She looked up, surprised. Are you sure? Mark nodded. Emma asked if Dad's boss lady could come. Her words, not mine. He smiled. She likes you, you know. Says you're strict but fair, which I think is high praise from a 12-year-old. Katherine's expression softened. I'd be honored. The birthday party was chaotic and joyful. Emma wore her new butterfly clip proudly, telling everyone it was from Ms. Katherine, Dad's boss who isn't scary once you get to know her. Katherine had laughed at that, relaxed in jeans and a casual sweater instead of her work attire. Later, as the other guests left and Emma played with her friends in the backyard, Katherine helped Mark clean up the kitchen. Thank you for including me today, she said, drying a plate he handed her. It means a lot. Mark watched her for a moment, this woman who had gone from intimidating boss to something he couldn't quite define. Thank you for understanding that day in your office. For seeing me as a father first, employee second. Katherine set down the dish towel and turned to face him. Mark, about what happened at the holiday party. Katherine, he began at the same time. They both stopped, then laughed awkwardly. You first, she said. Mark took a deep breath. I meant what I said that night. Emma has to be my priority. But, it's been 6 months, and she's doing better. She talks about her mother now without crying. She's making friends again. And she asks about you. Katherine's eyebrows rose. She does? She wants to know if you're coming to her school play next month. Apparently, I mentioned you enough that she's decided you're part of our lives now. He smiled ruefully. Kids don't understand workplace boundaries. And what do you want, Mark? Katherine asked quietly. The question hung between them, weighted with possibility. Through the window, they could see Emma laughing with her friends, the butterfly clip catching the afternoon sunlight. I want to take things slowly, Mark said finally. For Emma's sake. For all our sakes. But I'd like to see where this might go, if you're willing. Katherine's smile was different from any he'd seen before, open, genuine, without the careful restraint she usually maintained. I can do slowly, she said. I've waited this long. As they stood in his kitchen, the distance between boss and employee, between grief and possibility, seemed to narrow. Mark knew there would be complications ahead, workplace policies to navigate, Emma's feelings to consider, his own lingering guilt about moving forward after Sarah. But for the first time in years, the future held more promise than pain. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to maintain were the ones we set for ourselves, and sometimes the bravest thing wasn't holding firm, but knowing when to let them soften. Outside, Emma called for her father to come see something. Mark and Katherine exchanged a look of understanding before heading out together into the sunlight, taking the first careful step toward whatever might come next. 6 months after Emma's birthday party, Mark stood nervously outside the restaurant, checking his watch for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. This was their first official date, his first date since Sarah died 4 years ago. Katherine had been patient, allowing him to set the pace as their relationship evolved from strictly professional to something more. Emma knew they were having dinner together, and had helped him pick out his shirt with surprising enthusiasm. You look nice, Daddy, she'd said, her now 13-year-old wisdom somehow both childlike and ancient. Ms. Katherine will think so too. The restaurant door opened, and Katherine stepped out, elegant in a simple blue dress. Without her usual office attire and severe bun, she looked different, softer, yet somehow more vibrant. I was beginning to think you'd changed your mind, she said with a small smile. Mark shook his head. Just nervous. It's been a while. For me too, she admitted. The dinner was surprisingly easy, conversation flowing naturally as they discovered each other outside the confines of work. Katherine laughed more than he'd ever heard before, and Mark found himself sharing stories about Sarah without the usual stab of pain. She would have liked you, he said suddenly, surprising himself with the truth of it. Sarah always appreciated straightforward people. Katherine's eyes softened. I wish I could have known her. As they walked along the riverfront after dinner, their hands brushed accidentally. Mark hesitated, then gently took Katherine's hand in his. She looked up at him, a question in her eyes. Is this okay? He asked quietly. More than okay, she replied. When he dropped her at her door, there was a moment of uncertainty, the awkward pause of a first date ending. Katherine solved it by leaning up and kissing his cheek gently. Thank you for tonight, she said. Katherine, Mark said, gathering his courage. I know I said I wanted to take things slowly, and I still do, but I'm glad we're doing this. Whatever this is. She smiled. So am I. 3 weeks later, Katherine joined Mark and Emma for a Saturday at the zoo. Emma raced ahead to see the tigers, leaving them walking together in comfortable silence. She seems happy, Katherine observed. She is, Mark agreed. Happier than I've seen her in a long time. And you? Katherine asked, her voice careful. Mark stopped walking, turning to face her. I never thought I'd feel this way again after Sarah died. I thought that part of my life was over. Katherine waited, giving him space to find the words. I still love her, he continued. I always will. But I've realized there's room in my heart for more than just that love and Emma. There's room for new beginnings. Katherine's eyes shimmered slightly. New beginnings sound good to me. Emma called from up ahead, waving excitedly for them to hurry. As they walked toward her, Mark took Katherine's hand, no hesitation this time. That evening, after Emma had gone to bed, they sat on Mark's porch swing, the night air cool around them. I have something to tell you, Katherine said, her voice uncharacteristically nervous. I've been offered a promotion, Executive Vice President of Marketing. Katherine, that's amazing. Mark exclaimed. It would mean I'm no longer your direct supervisor, she continued. Different department, different floor even. Mark understood the implication immediately. The professional boundary that had complicated their relationship would no longer exist. When do you start? He asked. Next month. I wanted to be sure, that is, I wanted to know if you thought this might change things between us. Mark looked at her, this strong, complex woman who had entered his life as an adversary and become something so much more. He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, then deepening with the release of long-held restraint. When they finally parted, Mark rested his forehead against hers. I think, he said softly, that we've been waiting long enough. Katherine smiled, her usual composure beautifully undone. I agree. 1 year later, Mark stood in the same conference room where he had once whispered those words that had frozen Katherine in place. Now, they were colleagues rather than boss and employee, their professional relationship as solid as their personal one. Emma had blossomed, her initial wariness of Katherine giving way to genuine affection. The three of them had found a rhythm together, not replacing what Mark had lost, but building something new and equally precious. As the meeting ended and others filed out, Katherine lingered, waiting until they were alone. I have something for you, she said, sliding a small box across the table. Inside was a key. Move in with me, she said simply. Both of you. My house is bigger, Emma would have her own bathroom, and I. She hesitated, then continued with uncharacteristic vulnerability, I want to wake up with you every morning. Mark looked at the key, then at Katherine. For years ago, he couldn't have imagined being here, feeling this way again. The journey from grief to this moment hadn't been straight or easy, but standing on the other side, he felt nothing but gratitude. We're both adults, he said, echoing his words from that night at the holiday party, but with a smile this time. And I can absolutely do this. Katherine's answering smile was radiant as she leaned across the table to kiss him, professional setting forgotten. Sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come after we think all possibilities have ended. Sometimes the words we whisper in moments of doubt become the doorway to unexpected joy. And sometimes, when a single dad whispers, I can't do this, and his boss freezes, it's just the first chapter of a story that's only beginning to unfold. The end.